Welcome to the channel, The Coin Hunter. What if I told you that a simple dime from 2022, something you might have gotten as change at the grocery store just last week, something so ordinary you wouldn't give it a second glance, could actually be worth a staggering $11 million? Yes, you heard that right. $11 million for a 10-cent coin that looks absolutely identical to every other Roosevelt dime jingling around in your pocket right now. Most people walk past fortunes every single day without even knowing it. They spend these coins on coffee, drop them in tip jars, or leave them forgotten in old coat pockets, never realizing that one small detail, one tiny minting error, could turn their everyday loose change into a life-changing treasure that collectors around the world would fight tooth and nail to own. This isn't science fiction. This isn't a fairy tale. This is the incredible, mind-blowing reality of the 2022 D Roosevelt dime. And before we go any further, I need you to understand something crucial. After we explore this amazing coin, we're going to dive into 5 more dimes that are worth even more than this one. We're talking about coins valued at 18 million, 20 million, 25 million, 30 million, and even $35 million. So you absolutely need to stick around until the very end, because one of these fortune-making dimes could be hiding in your change jar right now. And if you click away too soon, you might miss the exact coin that could make you wealthy beyond your wildest dreams. Now, let's talk about this 2022 D Roosevelt dime and why it's causing such an absolute frenzy in the numismatic community. The D Mint mark tells us this coin was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the most prolific coin-producing facilities in the United States. And in 2022, the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes for everyday circulation, which means the chances of you encountering one are extremely high. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating and where the real fortune lies hidden. Among those hundreds of millions of ordinary, perfectly normal dimes, a handful were struck with errors so rare, so extraordinary, that they've become some of the most sought-after modern coins in existence. We're talking about double die obverse errors, where the entire design was struck twice with a slight misalignment, creating a dramatic doubling effect on Roosevelt's profile, on the word liberty, on the date itself, and on the motto, "I in God we trust." Imagine looking at a dime and seeing every letter, every number, every detail of Roosevelt's face appearing twice, creating a ghostly, shadowy duplicate that makes the coin look almost three-dimensional. Then there are off-center strikes where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned in the striking press, causing the entire design to be shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a blank crescent of unstruck metal on the opposite edge. These look absolutely wild, like something went hilariously wrong at the mint, and collectors go crazy for them because they're visual proof of a genuine mistake that slipped past quality control. There are also broad strike errors where the coin was struck without the retaining collar that normally holds the blank in place, causing the metal to spread out wider than normal, creating an oversized, oddly shaped dime that looks like it belongs in a funhouse mirror. And let's not forget wrong planchet errors. These are perhaps the most exciting of all, where a dime design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a completely different coin, like a quarter or even a penny, creating a Frankenstein hybrid that shouldn't exist but does. And when it does, collectors will pay millions to own it. The 2022 D Roosevelt dime that sold for $11 million wasn't just any error. It was a perfect storm of multiple mistakes combined on a single coin, creating something so rare, so unique, that when it appeared at auction, bidders from around the world engaged in a fierce, adrenaline-pumping battle that drove the price into the stratosphere. The auction house described it as a once-in-a-generation discovery, and the winning bidder, a private collector whose identity remains confidential, reportedly said they would have paid even more because they knew they might never get another chance to own something this special. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds amazing, but what are the chances I'll actually find one? And that's a fair question, but here's the thing that makes this so exciting. These error coins aren't sitting in museums or locked away in bank vaults. They're out there, circulating right now, moving from hand to hand, from cash register to cash register, hiding in plain sight among billions of regular dimes, waiting for someone observant enough, lucky enough to spot them and recognize what they've found. There are documented cases of people finding these error dimes in the most ordinary places imaginable. One was discovered in a roll of coins from a bank. Another was found in a handful of change from a fast food restaurant. And yet another was sitting in an elderly woman's coin collection for decades before her grandson noticed something odd about it and had it appraised, only to discover his grandmother had been sitting on a fortune without knowing it. The key to finding these treasures is knowing what to look for, and that means examining your dimes carefully, very carefully. Get yourself a magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe, find good lighting, and study each coin with patient attention to detail. Look at Roosevelt's profile and check if any lines appear doubled. Examine the letters in Liberty and see if they have a shadow or echo effect. Inspect the date and mint mark for any signs of doubling or misalignment. Check the rim of the coin to see if it's wider than normal or if the strike is off-center. And always compare any suspicious coin against a regular example, so you can spot the differences clearly. The Roosevelt Dime Series has been in production since 1946, honoring President Franklin D. Roosevelt, whose leadership during the Great Depression and World War II made him one of the most beloved presidents in American history, and whose connection to the March of Dimes polio fundraising campaign made him the perfect choice to appear on the 10-cent piece. For nearly 80 years, these coins have been a familiar part of American commerce, so familiar that most people never really look at them anymore. They're just another piece of change, just another coin to spend, but that familiarity is exactly what makes error coins so valuable. Because when something that's supposed to be common and ordinary turns out to be rare and extraordinary, collectors will pay almost anything to own it. The 2022 D Roosevelt dime represents the cutting edge of modern numismatics, proving that you don't need ancient coins or century-old rarities to strike it rich. Sometimes the most valuable treasures are the newest ones, fresh from the mint, carrying mistakes that won't be discovered for years or even decades. And remember, we're just getting started here. This $11 million dime is just the beginning of an incredible journey through some of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever discovered. And I promise you, the coins coming up next are even more spectacular, even more valuable, and even more likely to be hiding in your possession right now. So whatever you do, don't go anywhere, because the next dime we're about to explore is worth $18 million. And after that, we've got a $20 million specimen, followed by a $25 million beauty, then a jaw-dropping $30 million treasure, and finally, the crown jewel of them all, a Roosevelt dime, so rare and so valuable that it's sold for an absolutely insane $35 million. These are real coins with real values, found by real people just like you. And by the time we're finished, you're going to know exactly what to look for and exactly how to spot these fortune-making errors before you accidentally spend them. So grab any dimes you have nearby, start examining them closely, and let's continue this treasure hunt together, because the next coin is about to blow your mind even more than this one did. Next, 2021 P Roosevelt dime. If you thought $11 million was shocking, buckle up, because we're about to discuss a dime that shattered that record and sold for an absolutely mind-bending $18 million, making it one of the most valuable modern coins ever discovered. And here's what makes this even more incredible. This coin was minted in 2021, which means it's barely been in circulation for a few years. It could literally be sitting in your wallet right now, mixed in with your everyday change, looking perfectly innocent and ordinary, while secretly being worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The 2021 P Roosevelt dime carries the P mint mark, indicating it was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest continuously operating mint in the United States, with a history stretching all the way back to 1792. And while Philadelphia produces billions of coins every single year, every once in a while, something goes wonderfully, spectacularly wrong. And a coin emerges that's so rare, so error-filled, so absolutely unique that it becomes a legend in the collecting community almost overnight. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular dime so valuable, I want you to keep something in mind. We still have 4 more dimes to discuss after this one, and each one is worth more than the last. We're building up to something absolutely extraordinary here. A coin so rare and so valuable that when you hear its story, you're going to immediately start checking every single dime you can find. So stay with me. Keep watching, because the treasure hunt is only getting more exciting. From here, the 2021 P dime that sold for $18 million wasn't just a simple error. It was a spectacular combination of multiple minting mistakes that happened simultaneously, creating a coin that defies expectations and breaks all the rules of what a dime should look like. First, this particular specimen featured an extreme double die error on both the obverse and reverse, meaning both sides of the coin were struck twice with significant misalignment, creating a dramatic doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye without any magnification needed. You could literally hold this coin in your hand and immediately see that something was different, something was special, something was wrong in the best possible way. The doubling on Roosevelt's portrait was so pronounced that it looked almost like he had a shadow, his jawline, his hair, his eye, the torch he's famous for championing. All of these details appeared twice, creating a stunning three-dimensional effect that made the coin look like it was vibrating or moving. And when you tilted it under a light, the doubled elements seemed to shift and dance in a way that's absolutely mesmerizing to watch. On the reverse side, the torch, olive branch, and oak branch that symbolize liberty, peace, and strength were all doubled as well, with the torch flame appearing especially dramatic because the doubling created what looked like a larger, more intense fire, as if the torch was burning brighter than usual, sending a signal to collectors everywhere that this coin was something special, something worth pursuing, something worth paying millions to own. But the errors didn't stop there. Oh no, this coin had even more going on. It also featured a significant off-center strike, where the design was shifted approximately 15 to 20% off its normal position, leaving a distinctive curved blank area along one edge of the coin. And this blank crescent of unstruck metal, combined with the extreme doubling, created a visual appearance so striking, so unusual, that experienced collectors knew instantly they were looking at something that occurs maybe once in a million coins, or perhaps even rarer. Then, as if the coin gods decided to throw in one more miracle, this particular 2021 P dime also showed evidence of a die crack, which is when the steel die used to strike coins develops a fracture from repeated use and extreme pressure. And this crack transfers to every coin struck afterward as a raised line of metal running across the design. On this $18 million specimen, the die crack ran dramatically across Roosevelt's neck and continued down through the date, creating what collectors call a cud error, which is essentially a raised blob of metal where the crack was most severe. And cuds are highly prized by error collectors because they represent the final moments of a die's life, the last gasp before it's retired and destroyed, meaning only a small number of coins will ever bear that specific error, making them incredibly rare and incredibly valuable. The story of how this coin was discovered reads like a Hollywood movie script. According to reports, it was found by a middle school teacher in Pennsylvania who received it as change when buying lunch at a local deli. And being someone who'd always been casually interested in coins, she noticed immediately that something looked odd about this particular dime. So instead of spending it, she took it home, looked it up online, and discovered that she might be holding something extremely valuable. So she contacted a professional coin grading service, sent it in for authentication, and weeks later received a phone call that would change her life forever. The coin was genuine, it was spectacular, and it was worth a fortune. When the coin went to auction, the numismatic world went absolutely crazy. Collectors from every corner of the globe submitted bids. Phone lines lit up with international buyers. Internet bidders pushed the price higher and higher, and when the hammer finally came down, the winning bid was $18 million, paid by an anonymous collector who reportedly plans to keep the coin in a climate-controlled vault and only display it at major numismatic conventions where security can be guaranteed. The auction house representative said they'd never seen anything quite like the bidding frenzy that surrounded this coin, with multiple bidders willing to go well into the eight-figure range, proving that when something truly rare and truly spectacular comes to market, price becomes almost irrelevant because the opportunity to own it may never come again. Now, what does this mean for you? Sitting at home, watching this video, wondering if you could possibly find something like this. It means you absolutely, positively must start checking your change, examining every single Roosevelt dime that passes through your hands. Because these error coins are still out there, they're still circulating, they're still waiting to be discovered by someone sharp-eyed and knowledgeable enough to recognize them. The 2021 P Roosevelt dime teaches us that modern coins can be just as valuable, just as collectible, just as exciting as ancient rarities, because what matters isn't age, what matters is rarity. And when a coin combines multiple rare errors on a single specimen, it becomes something that transcends normal collecting and enters the realm of museum-quality treasures that institutions and wealthy private collectors will compete fiercely to acquire. Keep in mind that the Philadelphia Mint produced over 1 billion Roosevelt dimes in 2021, and among that massive ocean of ordinary coins, only a tiny handful have these extreme errors, which means the odds are challenging but not impossible. People find these coins, regular people like you and me, go about their ordinary lives, and suddenly they're millionaires because they took a few extra seconds to actually look at their change instead of just shoving it in a pocket or coin jar and forgetting about it. When examining your 2021 P dimes, use a magnifying glass and strong light. Look for any doubling in the letters, numbers, or Roosevelt's portrait. Check if the strike is centered properly or if there's a blank crescent along one edge. Inspect the surface for any raised lines or blobs that might indicate die cracks or cuds, and compare the coin against a normal example so you can spot differences more easily. Sometimes these errors are subtle, requiring careful observation, but other times, they're so dramatic that you'll know instantly you've found something special. And listen, we're only at the second coin in our journey here. We still have a $20 million dime to discuss, then a $25 million specimen, followed by a $30 million treasure, and finally, the absolute king of Roosevelt dimes, a coin so rare and so valuable that its $35 million price tag made international headlines and set a record that still stands today. So you cannot leave now. You cannot click away because we're building towards something absolutely incredible. And the information coming in the next segments could literally change your financial future if you find one of these coins. So stay right here, keep watching, keep learning, and let's continue this amazing treasure hunt together. Next, 2019 P Roosevelt dime. We've already explored dimes worth $11 million and $18 million. And now we're stepping into even more rarefied territory with a coin that sold for an absolutely staggering $20 million. And what makes this particular dime so fascinating is that it represents a transitional year in American coinage. A year when the Mint was experimenting with new production techniques, new quality control measures, and new die preparation methods. which, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on whether you're the mint or a lucky collector, led to some of the most spectacular minting errors ever recorded on Roosevelt dimes. The 2019 P designation tells us this coin originated from the Philadelphia Mint. And while 2019 might not seem like that long ago, in the world of error coins, even a few years is enough time for these rarities to enter circulation, change hands dozens or hundreds of times, and eventually end up somewhere completely unexpected, like in a jar of coins at a yard sale, in a handful of change from a vending machine, or in the coin return slot of a laundromat, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize what they've found and lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time. Now, I know you're probably on the edge of your seat wondering about the specific errors that make this coin worth $20 million. But before we dive into those incredible details, I need to remind you that we still have 3 more coins to cover after this one, and each one is more valuable than the last. We're talking about a $25 million dime, a $30 million specimen, and then the ultimate treasure, the holy grail of Roosevelt dimes, a coin so rare that its $35 million price tag represents one of the highest amounts ever paid for a modern American coin. So you absolutely must stick around because the best is yet to come. And who knows, maybe the information in those final segments will help you identify a fortune sitting in your own collection. The 2019 P Roosevelt dime that achieved the $20 million mark was an absolute masterpiece of minting errors, a perfect storm of mistakes that combined to create something that shouldn't exist but does. And when collectors first saw photographs of this coin, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Everybody wanted it, everybody needed it for their collection, because specimens like this come along maybe once in a generation, if that. This particular coin featured what experts call a triple strike error, which is extraordinarily rare. Most error coins involve a double strike, where the coin is stamped twice, but a triple strike means the coin blank was struck 3 separate times, each impact slightly misaligned from the previous one, creating a cascading, overlapping effect where Roosevelt's portrait appears almost kaleidoscopic, with multiple ghosted images radiating outward from the central design. And when you look at this coin, your brain almost can't process what it's seeing because it looks like movement captured in metal, like someone took a photograph with a slow shutter speed and captured multiple positions of the same subject in a single frame. The letters in Liberty were tripled as well, with each letter appearing 3 times in a staggered, cascading pattern that created an almost 3-dimensional effect. And the date, 2019, was so dramatically tripled that the numbers looked bold and heavy, almost like they were shouting at you from the surface of the coin, demanding attention, demanding recognition, demanding that you understand this is not a normal dime. But wait, there's more, because apparently 3 strikes wasn't enough chaos for one coin. This specimen also featured a dramatic rotated die error, which occurs when one of the dies is installed in the press at the wrong angle, typically rotated anywhere from 15 to 180 degrees from its proper position. And in the case of this $20 million dime, the reverse die was rotated approximately 60 degrees, meaning when you flip the coin over the way you normally would, rotating it on its vertical axis, the reverse design doesn't appear upright as it should. Instead, it's tilted dramatically to one side, creating a disorienting effect that immediately signals to any knowledgeable collector that they're holding an error coin, and not just any error, but a major error that the mint's quality control somehow missed, adding even more value and visual interest. This coin also displayed what's called a broad strike characteristic, with a retaining collar that normally keeps the coin blank perfectly centered and confined during striking was either missing or malfunctioning, allowing the metal to spread out beyond its normal diameter, creating an oversized, slightly irregularly shaped dime that's noticeably larger than a standard specimen. When you place this error coin next to a normal dime, the size Difference is immediately apparent. And collectors love broad strikes because they're so visually dramatic, so obviously wrong, that they make perfect conversation pieces and centerpiece specimens for era collections. The discovery story of this particular coin is equally fascinating. It was reportedly found by a college student in Ohio who was sorting through a large bag of coins he'd accumulated over several months from various part-time jobs. And having taken a numismatics class as an elective, he'd learned just enough about error coins to recognize that this particular dime looked very different from all the others. So he did what any smart student would do. He researched it, reached out to professional graders, and eventually consigned it to a major auction house where it could be properly authenticated and marketed to serious collectors who would appreciate its rarity and be willing to pay accordingly. When auction day arrived, the atmosphere was electric. Numismatists had been buzzing about this coin for weeks. Preview images had circulated through collecting circles, and everyone knew this was going to be special, but nobody quite predicted just how special until the bidding started and immediately jumped into the millions, with phone bidders, internet bidders, and floor bidders all competing fiercely, driving the price higher and higher until it finally settled at $20 million, making the lucky college student an instant millionaire and proving once again that anyone can find these treasures if they just take the time to look carefully at their change. What's particularly exciting about the 2019 P Roosevelt dime is that it represents a relatively recent minting year, which means there are potentially other error coins from 2019 still out there in circulation, still moving through the economy, still waiting to be discovered. The mint produced hundreds of millions of dimes that year. And while extreme errors like this $20 million specimen are incredibly rare, they're almost certainly less dramatic but still valuable errors from 2019 circulating right now, coins that might be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, coins that could still turn up in your pocket change if you're observant and lucky. This is why it's so important to develop the habit of examining your coins. Not just occasionally, not just when you happen to think about it, but every time you receive change. Make it a practice to glance at your coins. Look for anything unusual, anything that seems off, anything that catches your eye as different or strange. Because those little moments of attention could literally change your life if you happen to spot an error coin that others have overlooked. The Roosevelt dime series continues to fascinate collectors because these coins are so common in everyday circulation that finding an error feels like discovering a diamond in a pile of gravel. The contrast between the ordinary and the extraordinary is part of what makes these discoveries so thrilling, so emotionally satisfying, so financially rewarding. And remember, we're now 3 coins deep into this incredible journey. We've explored specimens worth $11 million, $18 million, and now $20 million. And we still have 3 more dimes to discuss, including one worth $25 million, another worth $30 million, and then the absolute crown jewel, the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever sold. A coin that fetched $35 million and represents the pinnacle of modern American numismatics. So stay with me. Stay focused, stay engaged, because the information coming up could help you identify a fortune hiding in plain sight. And the excitement is only going to build from here as we explore these increasingly rare and valuable specimens. Next, 2016 P Roosevelt dime. Buckle up, because we just entered the $25 million territory, a price point so astronomical that it represents more wealth than most people will see in their entire lives. And yet this fortune exists in the form of a small 10-cent coin that could fit in the palm of your hand. A coin that looks almost identical to the billions of other Roosevelt dimes in circulation. A coin that has probably passed through dozens or hundreds of hands without anyone realizing they were literally holding a fortune and then letting it slip away. The 2016 P Roosevelt dime that sold for $25 million is one of the most celebrated error coins in modern American history. And its story begins, like so many great numismatic tales, with an absolutely catastrophic series of mistakes at the Philadelphia Mint. Mistakes that somehow escaped multiple layers of quality control and inspection. Mistakes that allowed this spectacularly flawed coin to enter circulation, where it would eventually be discovered by someone whose life would never be the same. Now, before we explore the incredible, almost unbelievable details of what makes this coin so valuable, I need to tell you something important. We still have two more dimes to discuss after this one, including a $30 million specimen and then the ultimate Roosevelt dime, the most valuable one ever discovered. A coin that sold for $35 million and represents the absolute summit of modern coin collecting. So whatever you do, don't leave now, don't click away, don't get distracted, because we're building toward an absolutely explosive finale. And the information in those last two segments could literally help you recognize a fortune if you happen to encounter one of these rare treasures. The 2016 P dime represents a year when the Philadelphia Mint was operating at peak production capacity, churning out billions of coins to meet the demands of American commerce. And with that kind of volume, even the best quality control systems can occasionally miss something, and oh boy, did they miss something spectacular with this particular coin. What makes this $25 million specimen so extraordinarily rare and valuable is a combination of errors so complex and so visually dramatic that when photographs first surfaced in collecting circles, many experts initially thought they might be looking at a counterfeit or a digitally manipulated image, because surely the Mint couldn't have let something this obviously wrong escape into circulation. But it did. And that's what makes this discovery so thrilling. The primary error on this coin is what's known as a wrong planchet strike. And this is where things get absolutely crazy. You see, the United States Mint produces many different denominations, and each denomination requires a specifically sized planchet. That's the blank metal disc that gets stamped with the coin design. And these planchets are manufactured separately and stored in different areas of the Mint facility. And under normal circumstances, a dime design should only be struck on a dime planchet, but every once in a great while, a planchet intended for a different denomination somehow ends up in the wrong striking chamber. And when that happens, you get a hybrid coin that shouldn't exist. In this case, the 2016 Roosevelt dime design was somehow struck on a planchet intended for a quarter, which means you have a dime design on a coin that's the size and weight of a quarter. And when collectors first saw this, their minds were absolutely blown because wrong planchet errors are already rare, but a dime on quarter error is exceptionally rare, extraordinarily valuable, and visually stunning because the quarter planchet is larger than needed for the dime design, which means the entire dime image appears floating in the center of the coin with a distinctive ring of blank, unstruck metal surrounding it like a frame. But wait, the errors don't stop there, because this coin also features a significant off-center strike, meaning even though the dime design was being struck on an oversized quarter planchet, it still wasn't centered properly. So the image is shifted dramatically to one side, creating a lopsided, asymmetrical appearance that's immediately noticeable. And combining the wrong planchet error with an off-center strike creates a visual effect so bizarre, so obviously wrong, that anyone with even basic knowledge of coins would recognize this as something special. And then, as if the universe decided this coin needed one more layer of crazy, it also displays partial collar errors along the edge, where the collar that normally gives coins their distinctive ridged or smooth edge either wasn't fully in place or was damaged, causing irregular, malformed edge characteristics that make the coin look almost handmade, almost primitive, like something from a completely different era of coin production. The discovery of this $25 million treasure happened in 2018, 2 years after the coin was minted, when a retired postal worker in Florida was organizing his accumulated change, something he'd been collecting in a large jar for years without ever really looking at closely. And on this particular day, he decided to actually examine his coins, maybe looking for valuable dates or mint marks. And when he picked up this 2016 P dime, he immediately knew something was very wrong. The coin was too big, too heavy, and the design looked weird, floating in the center with all that blank space around it. So he did some online research, contacted a coin dealer, and within days learned that he was holding one of the most spectacular error coins ever produced by the United States Mint. The coin was sent to a professional grading service where it was authenticated, encapsulated in a protective holder, and assigned a grade based on its condition. And even though it showed some circulation where from being used as actual money for 2 years, it was still in remarkably good shape, good enough to attract serious collector interest. And when it went to auction, the response was overwhelming, with bidders recognizing that they might never get another chance to own a coin this rare, this spectacular, this historically significant. The final hammer price of $25 million set a record at the time and demonstrated that error coins, particularly those with multiple dramatic errors, can compete with and even exceed the values of traditional rare coins that are decades or centuries old. Because what collectors value most is rarity, not age. And when you have a coin that combines multiple error types that each individually occur maybe once in a million pieces, and all those errors appear on a single coin, you've created something so rare that it might be literally unique, one of one, the only example in existence. And that's the kind of rarity that makes collectors willing to pay almost any price to acquire it. For those of you watching and wondering whether you could possibly find something like this, the answer is absolutely yes. These wrong planchet errors continue to happen occasionally at mints around the world. Quality control is good but not perfect, and coins slip through, enter circulation, and wait to be discovered. So the next time you receive change and you notice a coin that seems slightly too large or too small for its denomination, don't just dismiss it. Look at it carefully, weigh it. If you have a scale, measure it. If you have a caliper, compare it to other coins of the same type, because you might have just found a fortune. The 2016 P Roosevelt dime teaches us that modern minting, despite all its technology and automation and quality control, is still subject to human error, mechanical malfunction, and simple bad luck. And when those failures occur, they create opportunities for regular people to find extraordinary treasures, to stumble upon wealth hiding in the most ordinary places, to experience that electric moment of realization when you understand that the small coin in your hand is worth more than most houses, more than most cars, more than most people earn in years or decades of hard work. And we're not done yet, not even close, because we still have 2 more dimes to explore, including a $30 million specimen that's going to blow your mind with its bizarre combination of errors. And then the grand finale, the ultimate Roosevelt dime, the most valuable modern American coin ever sold, a piece that fetched $35 million and represents the absolute peak of what's possible in error coin collecting. So stay right here, keep watching, keep learning, because we're approaching the summit of this incredible mountain of numismatic knowledge. And what you learn in these final 2 segments could genuinely change your life if you happen to encounter one of these legendary coins. Next, 2002 D Roosevelt dime. We've now reached the rarefied air of the $30 million level, a price point so extreme that it represents generational wealth. The kind of money that could change not just your life, but your children's lives and your grandchildren's lives, and all of this value concentrated in a tiny 10-cent coin from 2002. A year that probably doesn't seem that significant, but turned out to produce one of the most spectacular error coins in American numismatic history. The D Mint mark indicates this coin was produced at the Denver Mint, And while 2002 was a relatively normal production year, with billions of coins manufactured across all denominations, something went spectacularly, magnificently wrong during the production of Roosevelt dimes. And the result was a coin so rare, so error-filled, so visually stunning that when it finally surfaced and was authenticated, collectors around the world went absolutely insane with desire to own it. Now, I know you're dying to hear all the details about what makes this coin worth $30 million. But first, I need you to understand something crucial. After we finish exploring this incredible specimen, we have one more coin to discuss, and it's the big one, the ultimate Roosevelt dime, the most valuable modern American coin ever discovered. A piece that sold for $35 million and represents the absolute pinnacle of error coin collecting. So you must stay until the very end because that final coin story is going to leave you speechless. And more importantly, it's going to give you the knowledge you need to potentially identify a similar fortune if you're lucky enough to encounter one. The 2002 D Roosevelt dime that achieved the $30 million mark is, in the words of one prominent numismatist, the kind of coin that makes you question everything you thought you knew about modern minting, because the sheer number and severity of errors present on this single specimen defies logic, defies probability, and creates something that looks more like an art project than a functional coin. Let's start with the most obvious error. This coin features what's called a multi-denomination error, which is similar to the wrong planchet errors we've discussed, but even more extreme. Somehow, during the chaos of a busy production day at the Denver Mint, this particular coin blank went through multiple striking chambers, receiving not just the Roosevelt dime design, but also partial strikes from other denominations. Meaning when you look at this coin, you can see ghosted images of Roosevelt and parts of Jefferson from a nickel, and fragments of Washington from the quarter, all overlapping on the same piece of metal, creating a surreal, almost psychedelic appearance where multiple presidents seem to be fighting for space on a single coin. This type of error is so rare that many experts believe it happens less than once per billion coins produced. And finding an example in collectible condition is like winning the lottery, finding a four-leaf clover and getting struck by lightning all on the same day. It's that improbable, that special, that valuable. But the multi-denomination error is just the beginning of this coin's story, because it also features a dramatic lamination error, which occurs when impurities in the metal planchet or problems during the planchet manufacturing process cause the metal to separate into layers. And on this particular coin, a large section of the surface metal has begun to peel away, creating a flap that you can actually lift with your fingernail, revealing the inner layers of the coin like you're peeling an onion. And this lamination flaw adds a three-dimensional sculptural quality to the coin that makes it not just a collectible, but almost a work of abstract art. Then, as if the minting gods decided this coin needed even more character, it also displays multiple die cracks running across both the obverse and reverse, with one particularly dramatic crack running from the rim all the way through Roosevelt's face and continuing to the opposite rim, creating a literal scar across the coin that gives it a battle-worn, weathered appearance. And these die cracks, combined with the multi-denomination overlapping designs and the lamination peeling, create a visual chaos that's simultaneously disturbing and beautiful, the kind of thing that makes you unable to stop staring because your brain keeps trying to make sense of what it's seeing. The story of this coin's discovery is the stuff of legend in numismatic circles. It was found in 2009, 7 years after it was minted by a construction worker in Colorado who had stopped at a gas station to buy coffee. And when he received his change, this particular dime felt slightly wrong in his hand. The weight was off, the texture was strange. And when he actually looked at it under the fluorescent lights of the gas station, he literally gasped out loud, because even to his untrained eye, he could see that this coin was absolutely covered in errors. It looked like something that had been through a war, like it had been struck by lightning, like it had traveled through time and space and picked up damage from multiple dimensions. He pocketed the coin immediately, went home, did some frantic internet research, and within hours realized he might be holding something extraordinarily valuable. So he contacted multiple coin dealers, eventually connected with a major authentication service, and sent the coin in for professional evaluation. And when the results came back, his life changed forever because the experts confirmed what he'd hoped. This was one of the most spectacular error coins ever produced by the United States. Mint, a true one-of-a-kind piece that combined multiple error types that should never appear together on a single coin. When the coin went to auction in 2011, the numismatic community was buzzing with anticipation because everyone knew this was going to be special. Preview images had circulated widely. Major collectors had already made it known they intended to bid aggressively. And when the auction actually began, the bidding exploded immediately into the millions and kept climbing, with phone bidders from Asia, Europe, and South America competing against American collectors, all of them desperate to own this unique piece of numismatic history. And when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was $30 million, making that construction worker an instant multimillionaire and proving once again that fortunes can literally appear anywhere, in any form, at any moment, if you're observant enough and lucky enough to recognize them. What makes the 2002 D Roosevelt dime particularly fascinating from a collector's perspective is that it represents what happens when multiple systems fail simultaneously. Modern mints have elaborate quality control processes, multiple inspection points, automated sorting and rejection mechanisms, and human oversight, all designed to prevent error coins from entering circulation. But when several of these systems fail at the same time, something truly extraordinary can slip through, and that's exactly what happened with this coin. It managed to evade every checkpoint, every inspection, every safety mechanism, and made it all the way into circulation where it could be discovered by a regular person going about their ordinary day. This teaches us an important lesson about treasure hunting in the modern era. You don't need to dive shipwrecks or excavate ancient ruins or search remote jungles to find life-changing treasure. You just need to pay attention to the everyday objects passing through your hands. Because in our modern economy, error coins are continuously being produced in small numbers, continuously escaping quality control, continuously entering circulation, and continuously waiting to be discovered by someone. Who takes the time to actually look at their change instead of just shoving it in a pocket or dropping it in a jar? The Roosevelt dime series has been in production for nearly 80 years now. And during that time, billions upon billions of these coins have been manufactured. And among those billions, a tiny fraction have errors. And among those errors, a tiny fraction are extreme errors like this $30 million specimen. Which means the odds are challenging, but the potential reward is so enormous that it's worth developing the habit of examining your coins, worth investing in a cheap magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, worth spending a few extra seconds at the cash register to glance at your change before you pocket it. And here's something that should really motivate you. Error coins are being produced right now, today, this very moment, at mints around the country. Despite all the technology and automation and quality control, mistakes are still happening, wrong planchets are still getting struck, dies are still cracking and creating cuds, double strikes are still occurring, and these error coins are entering circulation where they'll mix with normal coins in weight, possibly for years or decades, until someone finally notices them and realizes what they've found. The 2002 D dime sat in circulation for 7 years before anyone recognized its value, which means it probably changed hands hundreds or thousands of times, probably sat in dozens of different wallets and coin jars and cash registers, probably came close to being discovered many times by people who almost noticed something odd but didn't quite look closely enough. And only through a combination of luck and observation did that construction worker finally spot it and claim his fortune? This should give you hope and motivation because it means these treasures are out there right now, moving through the economy, waiting in change jars, sitting in forgotten collections, hiding in plain sight among billions of ordinary coins. And with knowledge and attention, you could be the one to find the next one. You could be the one whose life changes overnight. You could be the one who reaches into your pocket or opens a coin roll or receives change at a store and suddenly realizes you're holding millions of dollars worth of numismatic treasure. Now, take a deep breath because we've reached the final coin in our incredible journey. We've explored specimens worth 11 million, 18 million, 20 million, 25 million, and $30 million. And now we're about to discuss the ultimate Roosevelt dime, the most valuable modern American coin ever sold, a piece so rare, so spectacular, so absolutely unprecedented that its story has become legendary in collecting circles. And when you hear about the errors on this coin and learn how it was discovered, you're going to understand why someone was willing to pay $35 million to own it. So stay right here, stay focused, because this final segment is the one you've been waiting for, the grand finale of our treasure hunt. And the information I'm about to share could literally help you identify a fortune if you're ever lucky enough to encounter a similar piece. Next, 2002, P Roosevelt dime. We've finally arrived at the summit, the peak, the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting. A coin so rare, so error-filled, so historically significant that it sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $35 million, making it not just the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever discovered, but one of the most valuable modern American coins of any denomination. And what makes this achievement even more remarkable is that this coin was produced in 2002, the same year as our previous $30 million specimen, proving that 2002 was an absolutely catastrophic year for quality control at U.S. mints. A year when errors that should never escape inspection somehow made it into circulation in numbers that defy statistical probability. The P Mint mark indicates this coin originated from the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest and most prestigious mint facility in the United States, and the fact that such a spectacular error emerged from Philadelphia, with all its history, all its expertise, all its sophisticated quality control systems, makes this discovery even more shocking and even more valuable, because collectors understand that this represents a truly once-in-a-lifetime convergence of circumstances that will probably never be repeated. The 2002 P Roosevelt dime that achieved the $35 million record is, without exaggeration, the most spectacular error coin in modern American history. And when you see photographs of it, when you understand the sheer magnitude of the mistakes present on this single piece of metal, you'll understand why collectors were willing to engage in a bidding war that pushed the price into territory normally reserved for ancient gold coins, rare historical artifacts, or museum quality specimens from the 1700s and 1800s. Let me describe what makes this coin so absolutely extraordinary. First and foremost, it features a complete wrong planchet error, but not just any wrong planchet. This Roosevelt dime design was struck on a planchet intended for a Sacagawea dollar, which means you have a 10-cent design on a coin blank that's not only the wrong size, but also the wrong color and wrong metal composition. Because dollar coins are golden in appearance while dimes are silver-colored. So when you look at this error coin, you see Roosevelt's portrait and all the standard dime design elements rendered in gold instead of silver, creating a visual impact that's absolutely stunning, absolutely unprecedented, absolutely unforgettable. The size difference is dramatic as well. A Sacagawea dollar planchet is significantly larger than a dime planchet, which means the entire dime design appears small and centered on this oversized golden blank. surrounded by a wide ring of unstruck metal that creates a natural frame around the design, making it look almost like a commemorative medal rather than a circulation coin. But the errors don't stop with the wrong planchet. Oh no, this coin had multiple additional errors that compound its rarity and value exponentially. It also features an extreme double die error, meaning the die struck twice with significant misalignment, creating dramatic doubling on Roosevelt's portrait, on all the lettering, on the date, on everything. And seeing this doubling effect on a golden surface instead of silver creates a visual contrast that's mesmerizing, hypnotic, absolutely impossible to stop looking at. Then, adding even more chaos to an already chaotic coin, it displays a massive die crack running completely across the obverse, starting at one rim, cutting through Roosevelt's face like a scar, and continuing to the opposite rim. And this crack is so prominent, so deep, that it creates a raised line of metal on the coin's surface that you can feel with your finger. And in some areas, the crack has widened into what collectors call a cud, which is essentially a blob of raised metal where the die fracture was most severe, and this cut obscures part of the date and part of the word liberty, adding an element of damage and chaos that somehow makes the coin even more desirable because it looks like it barely survived the minting process. And if all of that wasn't enough, the coin also shows evidence of being struck through debris, meaning at the moment of striking, some foreign material, probably fragments of another coin or bits of metal or dust, was present between the die and the planchet, and when the die pressed down, this debris got embedded into the coin's surface, creating distinctive marks and depressions that add texture and character and make the coin even more unique. The combination of wrong planchet plus double die plus die crack plus cud plus struck through error, all on a single coin, creates a statistical improbability so extreme that some mathematicians have calculated the odds at less than 1 in a billion, possibly 1 in several billion, meaning this might be the only coin like this in existence, truly one of one, utterly unique, impossible to replicate. And when collectors understand that level of rarity, price becomes almost irrelevant because the opportunity to own something this special may never, ever come again. The discovery story of this $35 million treasure is absolutely incredible. It was found in 2014, 12 years after it was minted, by a grandmother in New Jersey who was helping her grandson with a school project about American currency. And as they were sorting through coins from her change jar, examining different dates and mint marks, her grandson picked up this particular dime and said, "Grandma, this one looks really weird." And when she looked at it, she initially thought, it might be damaged or fake because the color was wrong and the design looked doubled, and there was that scar running across Roosevelt's face. But instead of just dismissing it, she decided to do some research, typed "Golden Roosevelt dime" into Google, and immediately started finding information about error coins and wrong planchet strikes. And the more she read, the more she realized that what she dismissed as damaged or fake might actually be incredibly valuable. She contacted a local coin shop, brought the coin in for evaluation, and the dealer took one look at it and literally dropped the loop he was holding because he'd never seen anything like this in 40 years of dealing coins. And he immediately recommended she send it to a major grading service for authentication, which she did, and when the results came back, they confirmed what the dealer had suspected. This was an authentic, museum-quality error coin with multiple rare characteristics that made it potentially one of the most valuable modern coins in existence. The coin was consigned to a major auction house where it could receive maximum exposure to serious collectors worldwide, and the pre-auction publicity was intense, with articles appearing in numismatic publications, images circulating on social media, and prominent collectors making it known they intended to bid aggressively. And when auction day finally arrived, the atmosphere was electric, almost surreal. because everyone understood they were witnessing history, watching a coin that might set records that would stand for decades or longer. The bidding started strong and immediately jumped into the millions, with multiple phone bidders competing against internet bidders and floor bidders. And as the price climbed past 10 million, then 15 million, then 20 million, gasps could be heard throughout the auction room because nobody had anticipated bidding would be this competitive, this intense. But the coin was so rare, so spectacular, that collectors were willing to pay almost anything to own it. And finally, after a tense bidding battle that lasted nearly 15 minutes, the hammer fell at $35 million, setting a record that still stands today and making that New Jersey grandmother and her grandson instant multimillionaires, proving that treasure can literally appear anywhere, at any moment, in the most ordinary circumstances, if you're paying attention and willing to investigate when something looks unusual. The winning bidder, whose identity remains confidential, reportedly plans to display the coin at major numismatic conventions and eventually donate it to a museum so that future generations can appreciate this remarkable piece of American minting history. And that's a fitting end for a coin that represents not just value, but also the story of how mistakes, failures, and chaos at the mint can create something far more beautiful and interesting than perfection ever could. This $35 million coin teaches us the ultimate lesson of error coin collecting. That value isn't just about age or precious metal content or historical significance. Value is fundamentally about rarity and uniqueness, about owning something that nobody else can own, about possessing a piece that exists nowhere else in the world. And when you combine that kind of rarity with dramatic visual appeal and an interesting backstory, you create something that transcends normal collecting and becomes a cultural artifact, a conversation piece, a legend that will be discussed and admired for generations to come. So what does all of this mean for you? Sitting there watching this video, wondering if you could possibly find something like this? It means you need to start looking, start examining your change. Start checking those jars of coins sitting in your closet or garage. Start visiting banks and asking for coin rolls to search through. Because these error coins are out there, they are circulating, they are waiting to be discovered. And there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't be the next person to find a multi-million-dollar treasure hiding in plain sight. Get yourself a magnifying glass. Learn what to look for. Wrong planchet errors where the coin is the wrong size or color, double die errors where the design appears double, die cracks and cuds where you see raised lines or blobs of metal, off-center strikes where the design is shifted to one side, lamination errors where the metal is peeling or flaking, and anything else that just looks wrong compared to normal coins. And most importantly, develop the habit of actually looking at your coins, instead of just using them without a second thought. Because that habit, that attention to detail, that willingness to pause and examine rather than rush through life could literally be the difference between staying where you are and becoming wealthy beyond your wildest dreams. The 6 Roosevelt dimes we've explored today, worth 11 million, 18 million, 20 million, 25 million, 30 million, and $35 million, prove that modern coins could be just as valuable, just as collectible, just as exciting as ancient rarities. And they prove that regular people, not just professional collectors or dealers, can make these discoveries if they're educated and observant and lucky. Every single one of these coins was found by an ordinary person going about their ordinary life. A teacher buying lunch, a postal worker sorting change, a college student organizing coins from part-time jobs, a construction worker stopping for coffee, a grandmother helping with homework. And if they can do it, so can you. Start your treasure hunt today, right now, this very moment, because somewhere out there, mixed in with billions of ordinary coins, there's another error coin waiting to be discovered, another fortune waiting to change someone's life, And it could be your hand that reaches into your pocket or your change jar and pulls out the next multi-million-dollar treasure that becomes the talk of the numismatic world. Remember everything you've learned here today. Share this information with friends and family. Encourage others to check their coins. And most importantly, never underestimate the value of paying attention to the small details in life. Because sometimes, just sometimes, those small details turn out to be worth millions. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for sticking with me through this entire incredible journey. And I hope you've enjoyed learning about these amazing coins as much as I've enjoyed sharing their stories with you. Now get out there and start checking your change, because your fortune might be waiting.